can't believe I've been talked into this, Joe. I cannot believe I'm the only girl going, and it's just so mad, and I'm so terrified of the whole thing. You know, like serial killers staying in motels, driving in America. You know, the whole thing just terrifies the living daylights out of me. But I thought I'm 54 years old, if not 55, and I'll never have a chance like this again. I've got to do it.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello, my name's Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Joe's interviewing Nicola Cairncross. Joe first came across Nicola as a subscriber to the Money Gym mailing list and at some of their events, but they first met at an internet marketing summit where Nicola was speaking and Joe was crewing. They keep in touch and their paths have crossed a number of times over the intervening years. Nicola interviewed Joe on her original podcast last year. Joe is now an avid listener of Nicola's current podcast that she hosts with Judith Morgan. Joe can often be seen chuckling her way around Sainsbury's, looking like a madwoman whilst listening to their eclectic banter. Founder of self-funded six-figure startup clicksandleads.com and co-host of Own It, the podcast, Nicola left school at 16 with only 3 core skills: the ability to talk, a love of books, and the ability to type. She's now a speaker, podcaster, blogger, and Amazon #1 best-selling author, having published The Money Gym, The Business Success Factory, and How to Market Any Business Online. Walking the talk as she learned about business success herself, Nicola ended up buying and renovating on a shoestring a £500,000 hotel on no money down, among other previous businesses ventures both on and offline. In the early days of the internet, Nicola had no money for marketing, so quickly taught herself how to market real-world business online, creating her first six-figure business, The Money Gym, from a 5-page website and a text-only zine. She's now a self-professed geek and loves online marketing with a passion. She wants to share with all business owners. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Nicola Cairncross of clicksandleads.com. Hi Nicola, how are you?
I'm very well, Joe. Thanks for having me on the show.
Really pleased to have you here. We've known each other a while, haven't we? So always good.
Yes.
Always good to be interviewing people that I know outside of just being online. So we have actually met, haven't we, a few times?
yeah, we've clocked each other's eyeballs in a real life place.
So tell me about you, what you do, and where you do it.
Okay. Well, I live in Shoreham-by-Sea, which is about 7 miles from Brighton in the UK, and I run a boutique Facebook ads agency, which also does Twitter and Instagram ads, but we promote it as a Facebook ads agency. When I say it's boutique, I mean that I'm never going to be huge, in that I don't want hundreds and hundreds of clients. I think I'll top it at between 40 and 80. But at the moment we have about 10 to 15 clients, and I love working with them, very hands-on. Which enables me to bring all my sort of 20 years of online marketing experience and direct marketing experience to the benefit of the clients, as well as just doing their ads.
And you're based from home?
Yes, I work from home. I'm sitting in my dining room as we speak.
And is that your usual place, or do you sort of move around the house depending on what you do?
If I want to get away from the computer, I'll go and sit in the kitchen. I've played with the idea several times of renting a little office space in a rather swanky place at the end of my road. But I can't quite bring myself to do it. I just love working from home. I love the convenience of it. I love being warm. I don't feel lonely in any way because I'm connecting with people online all day. So, there doesn't seem any point in spending 500 quid on an office I'll probably never use.
No, and sitting there in your pyjamas just wouldn't work the same, would it?
No, I would have to get dressed and blow dry my hair.
That would just add extra trauma to the morning routine, so that's a nice link there. So what do you have a particular way of getting the day started that gets you into being productive?
I do, as a matter of fact. I am a morning person, but I'm not one of these fanatics who get up at 5 a.m. My kids are now 18 and 20, and I've done my share of getting up and doing the school run and getting the sandwiches ready and having to be, blow dried and made up before I go out the door. So I thoroughly enjoy my mornings. I have an app on my phone called Sleep Cycle, which you set an alarm to say, wake me up in the hour before this time when I'm at my lightest part of sleep. So it doesn't actually feel like an alarm clock goes off at all. And I have it set to play Kanye West and Jay-Z's Otis, which is not what you'd expect, but it makes me smile every morning. A little bit hip-hop. So, it wakes me up when I'm coming up to my lightest part of my sleep cycle. And I just love it. It's completely revolutionised my life. It's got rid of my jet lag when I travel. So then when I wake up, I go and obviously clean my teeth and all that stuff, and then go down and make a really good cup of coffee and bring it back to bed and sit and write my journal, which is a black moleskin diary, and I'm on to about 7 or 8 now. I started the diary writing, the journaling, when things were very, very tough after the money gym. My first successful business went down the pan. And I think it kept me sane in those days, being able to write out all my feelings and thoughts. So it's got everything in there, from to-do lists to how I feel about things. And I wouldn't like anyone to read it, that's for sure.
So you won't be publishing it anytime soon.
No, well, it does help because I've been chronicling the journey to start Clicks and Leads since last Christmas when I launched it, and having all the data in my diary has made it a lot easier to write the blog posts. So about what time do I get up normally? About 9ish. I start to get up and have a shower. I don't have anything in my diary before 10, and so I like a nice leisurely morning. It reminds me that I am, self-employed and I can do what the hell I like.
I love that. It's funny actually. I've changed what I do in the morning quite often, and my more recent routine is sort of similar. I use Sleep Cycle as well. I would thoroughly recommend it too, but I don't have hip hop waking me up. But I then plan my day before I get out of bed, and I do some reading and do all the things that then don't get done if real life takes over, sort of thing. I'm fortunate that my husband takes little Doddsy to school, so I don't actually have to get up, although I'm part of the routine, because I'm there, if you like, when they're getting ready. But yeah, I'm much the same. Don't want to do too much around appointments at that time either, because I need that nice time to get the day set up. But as you say, I'm not a 5 o'clocker either. Excellent. So
you listen to all those young men on the startup podcast saying I get up at 5 and I meditate, and I do all this. But I just think, I'd rather not. When you've got small children, your sleep is the most precious thing, and when you get to the point where you don't have to get up at the crack of dawn, then why would you?
Yeah, exactly. And just thinking about your diary, come journal, come everything else type thing, do you regularly read back over it, or is it more about getting the stuff out and sort of formed, if you like?
No, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't. It helps me with the process of thinking in the moment. If I've done something like a particular exercise, perhaps I'm listening to something or I read something in a book and I think, that would be good to do, I do it in my diary, and then I do number the pages. So if I've got anything particularly meaningful, I'll go and put, at the end of the book, I'll put what page that thing was on, so I can find it easy again, because what I hate is having to look for things and not knowing which book they're in. And that was a little tip that was incredibly useful, so I can find things again when they're when they're important. But no, I tend not to read it back unless I'm doing something like a roundup for the blog post of what I've been up to.
Mm-hmm. And what about at the end of the day? Do you have a certain routine? Do you sort of finish work at a certain time, or is it a bit more fluid than that?
I stagger away from the computer with eyes like sand. I pour myself the biggest glass of wine I possibly can, and I watch crap TV all evening because I can't think any further. No, honestly, I don't have an evening routine. I literally do stagger away with eyes like sand, have a glass of wine, and then watch terrible television or go for dinner with friends. That's pretty much what I do in the evenings.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any sort of routine to make sure that you get to sleep on time, or properly, or whatever, or are you just tired by then, so you don't need that?
I've always slept well. I have a spider phobia, which is a bit of a mission, as it's not getting any better either. So I have to listen to podcasts to get me off to sleep, because and the thing about if you do it on your iPhone or your iPad, it gets darker gradually. It sort of lowers the light level. Because otherwise, when I take my contact lenses out, I can't see a thing, and I am prone to lying in bed thinking I can see something crawling across the ceiling. And your imagination is a terrible, powerful thing, and that's the one thing I haven't been able to fix, is that. So I've done lots of tapping, I've done lots of hypnotherapy, I haven't done aversion therapy because I know what that involves, but it is a challenge for me, and I think it comes from anxiety. When I was having a really bad time in about 2010, I think that's when the spider phobia really ramped up. So I think it's an anxiety-driven thing, but listening to podcasts helps me. It engages my brain enough so that I can relax to go to sleep, learn something at the same time, and gradually relax. And by the time I'm asleep, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, interesting. Are there any particular podcasts that you'd recommend? And I know there is, because I listen to your podcast and you're always recommending them, and I go scurrying off to check them out. So which ones would you say are your favourite at the moment?
I've got 5 favourites. A couple of them are with James Schramko, who runs Superfast Business. He's got his own Superfast Business podcast, but funnily enough, I don't listen to that much because it's too short. It's only 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But he does one with Ezra Firestone, who is a real hippie from America, and that's called Think, Act, Get, Tag. And that's brilliant. They talk very deeply about something for about half an hour, and I like that. The one he does with Taki Moore, who talks so fast, is faster than me. It's hilarious. That's brilliant for coaches. That's called Sales, Marketing, Profit. And then my other 3 favourites are Bootstrap with Kids. Love that. And in fact, I'm sponsoring that now for a certain amount of money every month. And the Zero to Scale, they're all startup orientated, these 3, and then the Startup Chat. The Startup Chat is possibly my favourite now because it's got the mental Stelly FT and
you see, I'm going to have to tell Judith that you've mentioned him on my podcast.
I get Stelly in. A mention of Stelly in on everything I do. He's just a bonkers Greek who went to America and he's got a successful software company himself now. But he hooked up with Hyten Shah, who started Crazy Egg and Kissmetrics, and together they are dynamite. It's just the funniest, fastest paced, but also most thoughtful and emotionally intelligent podcast I know. I love it. The Startup, that one's called.
Brilliant, excellent. I knew you'd have some good recommends there. So, so thinking about how you organise what you do, how you get stuff done, what sort of ways do you do that?
Well, the main thing really, when I was thinking about the answer to this question, is diary zoning. I don't work very well because I've got ADD, but I can also hyper-focus. Which means to focus for a long time on one thing, but only if I'm engaged in that thing. But diary zoning helps me very much because I can batch jobs into certain types of jobs. So, for example, Wednesdays, all about podcasting, all about telephone calls, all about interacting with other people. Then Mondays and Fridays are working on the business, and Tuesdays and Thursday mornings is calls with clients, stroke potential clients, and then the afternoons are all free. And so I find diary zoning works really, really well for me. I work much more efficiently if I don't have to chop and change and do different things.
Yeah, it's something I've heard a lot.
Together.
Yeah, I've been listening to podcasts where people have been saying that recently. It's something that I try to do, but the nature of what I'm doing with so many different sort of types of organisations, it doesn't quite work that way. I tend to have a theme for the day, but then I actually do something else entirely. So it's not really working for me at the moment. Yeah, at least I'm thinking about it anyway. So,
exactly.
And do you use any particular tools or apps to help with that?
Oh, come on, Joe. You know I love a nice app. The 3 that sprang to mind are Slack, which is a way of communicating with your team, and it's highly, the thing I swapped to it, we were using email and Skype, and it was working all right, but you can't search either of those very efficiently. So, but the thing about Slack is all your in-team communications go on inside Slack, and it's highly searchable. It integrates with lots of other things. So if, for example, you put a YouTube video URL in there, it will actually bring the YouTube video into Slack, so you don't have to go off to YouTube and get distracted by other videos of cats and things. So it's very good. Trello I love. I don't use it massively for myself, but we do use it to set up our systems and for the team to follow the systems. So, I don't use it for my own to-do list, but it is a really nice tool. And we have client Trello boards and all sorts of things. And Trello comes into Slack, so every time I go into Slack, I can see what's been happening in the Trello boards without having to go into Trello itself. So they work really well together. And the final two are Infusionsoft. I mean, I know other people use other things, and I know there's other things that are just as good, but I've been using it for a couple of years, and I love it. And Lead Pages. Couldn't live without Lead Pages now.
Yeah. So Infusionsoft, you were talking about on your podcast the other week that there's something else that you quite like the look of, but because you're so wedded to Infusionsoft now, it would be too much effort to sort of change it. Can you remember what that one was?
Well, I have been playing with the idea of moving, but Judith convinced me that to save $100 a month and the time spent learning the new things wouldn't work. I mean, there's a lovely tool called Active Campaign, which has a lot of the really nice features of Infusionsoft without being quite so difficult to learn. But if you're not even ready for Active Campaign yet, I would be looking at using ConvertKit, which is an email list host with automation features, i.e. if someone takes an action or clicks something, they get moved automatically to another list. And then I would probably team that up with Stelli's Close.io, which is a customer relationship management system.
Yes.
Because really what you need is a CRM and a mailing list host, and you need the two to talk to each other. So if the least expensive combo, I think, is Close.io and ConvertKit.
Yeah. Wow, so that's really for our geeky marketing people out there. Some people are...
I think ConvertKit's for starter people, really. Most people recommend Aweber and MailChimp. I've always hated MailChimp. Whenever I have to go into MailChimp for clients, I hate it. It's so counterintuitive.
Yes.
And Aweber is very efficient just for holding your list, but they charge you if a contact's on more than one list. I didn't realise that till recently. But B, very unreliable in terms of, even if you hook it up to PayPal and set up automation features so that if someone buys something they get moved from a prospect list to a customer list, you actually have to go and check because it often lets you down.
Yeah.
So I think the two, ConvertKit and ConvertKit, Close.io for your CRM, and something like PayPal to take money, or even Gumroad. But beware with Gumroad because they hold your money for a month.
Oh, right. Yes.
So PayPal's better in some ways.
Yeah. Cool. So
I use Stripe actually nowadays to take my money, and it's cheaper than PayPal, and you don't have the thing that if someone has your goods and services and then willfully asks for a refund, PayPal will automatically refund them, whereas Stripe won't.
Yes.
Necessarily.
No. Excellent. Some really good recommends there. Thank you. So what about relaxing and not doing any of this work stuff? Because you said you watch the telly sort of thing. Do you go out walking? I know you read, don't you?
I do read. I read a lot, and I love films. I watch a lot of films, both with friends indoors, and also we go to the cinema a lot with the teens. I hang out with teens a lot, actually. We've got my daughter and son have got some amazing friends, and I've always had open house. So they're coming and going. They're parking their bikes. They're popping in, on their way to other places. I love to cook. That's one of my favourite things. So even myself, when it's just me, I'll cook a decent dinner. And I love live jazz. So I go to live jazz open mic nights with my sister, who is an opera singer, stroke jazz singer. And she's a very, she's international class, so she was, it's lovely when she gets up on the mic.
Yes.
I bawl like a baby every time.
and not quite what they're expecting in Shoreham or wherever.
Exactly. No, they do know her now, but when she first sang, you could hear a pin drop. That's for sure.
Yes, yeah, lovely. So, what about keeping healthy? I remember your podcast only just this last week. You were actually talking about a mindset thing around exercise and things like that, which I thought was really interesting.
No. I'm rubbish at it. I don't know why, and I'm working very hard intellectually to try and find out why I can't seem to give a toss. But I just can't. Honestly, I know what's bad. I know sitting down all day is bad for me. I know I should be taking exercise. I can't. The first step in the process for me was clearing my diary in the afternoons. Yeah. So that I could stop at 2:00 and go and. I think my next step is to go and join a luxury gym. Because I don't want to go to my local swimming pool and be uncomfortable and cold, trying to get changed with a bunch of kids. I think I've got to turn it into something that's a treat or a reward rather than something I have to do, because I just can't bring myself to do it.
No.
I've got loads of energy. I'm really lucky, but I'm 54, 55. I can't actually remember which one. So I know I need to take better care of myself, and I am overweight. I lost a lot of weight for a while, but then I put it all back on again, and I know I need to do something about this, but I can't quite seem to bring myself to have the motivation to do it. But I don't suffer from motivation for anything else apart from this. Yeah. So there's something psychological going on, and I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with you, though. I think it's about finding something that you enjoy, something that is just something you'll do naturally, rather than feeling like you have to, because that just gets completely in the way, doesn't it? I used to play quite a lot of netball, and I haven't for a long time now, and I tend to just walk now. And I've been listening to some podcasts around health and fitness and so on, where they've said actually in some cases people are doing too much exercise, and they're doing all this stuff thinking it's really good for them, and actually exercising sometimes is actually stressful on your body. And can actually sometimes cause more issue than it solves, which is interesting, because that's not the story we're sold all the time, is it?
No, but it's the story we hear from the runners amongst us. Everyone I know who runs has got problems. But, walking and podcast is sort of the way forwards, I think, because I get very bored very quickly, and I can't just walk for the meditation, relaxation of it. I would have to be listening to something, otherwise it would drive me crazy. Yeah, I do quite think about street dance often. I think about street dance. I just love watching people dancing in like street dance, and I was trying to find one, but the nearest one's in Brighton, and I'm just never going to drive over to Brighton to go. So
you've disappointed me now. I thought you were meaning actually just go out in the street and dance. Just imagining your neighbours wondering what was going on.
I think that's where the name comes from, though, where that they all used to hang out on street corners and do dance-offs and things.
Yeah, exactly. Oh well, I'm sure I'll be kept posted with that on your podcast. So I'll keep
ongoing challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So what about learning and improving? I know you do a lot of this sort of thing. So what particularly do you do? And do you sort of plan to do this, or is it just something you're naturally inclined to?
I just love it. It's one of my. Remember back in the early days of coaching when we all had to do our core needs and our core values, and one of my core needs turned out to be learning, and one of my core needs are things you can't live without, and values are things that make your heart sing, and I just love to learn. So learning is both a core need and a core value for me. I love to. I've always been a bookworm, and I've just read. I've realised this week I've read 3 books this week. Choose Yourself by James Otorcha, the podcast guy. He's a startup founder and went bust, had a lot of problems with drugs. I just find him quite a fascinating character. But nice book, Choose Yourself. I've read Get a Grip, which is by Gino Wickman, who wrote Traction. Traction is one of the best business books I've ever read after the E-Myth. In fact, it's like E-Myth for grown-ups. And Get a Grip is a version of the Traction story, but it's written in a story as if it was about a real company.
Right.
So it gives you a deeper understanding of how the concepts in Traction and the tools in Traction would be used.
And what's sorry, just sort of push that a bit further. So what's the sort of overriding message with that? What's the?
Well, it's how to grow a business. And when I came out of the Money Gym, there were 3 of us partners. We had 5 coaches, and it was pretty effortless because everyone was so motivated. But then I went back into myself and thought, I'm never going to do anything with anyone else ever again now. I'm just going to be a solopreneur. But when I read Traction, it really fired me up again to build a proper business, because it tells you how to do that. It gives you systems and processes to follow to build a heart-centered business with simple processes, and just really fired me up. Actually, Traction is brilliant. It is like E-Myth for grown-ups. If you read E-Myth first and you love it, read Traction straight after, or read Get a Grip first, actually, and then perhaps read Traction, because Get a Grip's the story version and it's much more enjoyable to read.
Right, yes.
And I've also read this week Yannick Silver's new book, which is all about entrepreneurs with passion, people who want to make a difference in the world. I can't remember exactly what he calls it, and it's upstairs, so I can't even dig it out.
I'll look it up. It'll be fine.
It is one of those books where you pay the postage and packing, but it's very, very inspirational. He talks about people like Innocent Drinks and Virgin Galactic and all that stuff, and he talks about why it's so important in this world to have a business that's out to make a difference. How important it is, both from the success and the business point of view, and also the world's point of view. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll have to perhaps have a look at it. It fits. We were talking before we started recording about the work that I do with Engage for Success, and a lot of what we talk about around employee engagement is about connecting employees to the strategic narrative for the organisation, and it's so much easier to do that when it is something, as you say, that's making a difference. So yeah, that sounds like a good one to read. Mm-hmm.
I also love going to conferences. I love to learn by going to conferences, because I think it takes you out of your normal environment and gives you time to work on your business by way of thinking about it. And I love video training. I've just signed up for a new Facebook ads course, just because I want to make sure I'm not missing anything by this particular trainer. So love to. I was thinking, that's something good to get stuck into at the weekend. I mean, most people wouldn't think, they wouldn't look forward to that, put it that way, whereas I certainly do.
It's funny, I always think I'm really busy and I've got so much going on, but I can't believe how much you pack in. Just by...
Well, I think more that the kids don't, they live with their dad round the corner. In fact, I think one's just arrived, so they come around here all the time. Hello, darling. And, so I don't have the day-to-day thing of having to look after kids, which, you won't realise, Joe, till it stops, how time-consuming it is, and how also having a husband, those people want demands on your time, whereas my partner doesn't live with me, and so, he's not expecting my attention all the time, and the kids don't either, so I do have more time than most people, I think.
So you talked a bit about liking going out and listening to jazz. What about other sort of music and films and perhaps some I was going to say non-fiction, but that's not how you say it, is it? Books that aren't about business. Do you partake?
I love sci-fi. Yeah. I'm mad about sci-fi. Biggest Star Trek fan ever. Not so keen on Star Wars. Absolutely love anything sci-fi orientated, and thrillers. I love drama on the TV. British drama. Absolutely love that. I can't really think of much else apart from. I love to travel. We're going on the Internet Marketers Cruise in January, end of January, and because it's a lot closer to traffic and conversions, which is a big thing in San Diego, the other side of the country. There's 4 or 5 of us are hiring. It's going to make you laugh. We're hiring Mustangs, convertibles, and we're driving across America. I can't believe I've been talked into this, Joe. I cannot believe I'm the only girl going, and it's just so mad, and I'm so terrified of the whole thing. Like serial killers staying in motels, driving in America. The whole thing just terrifies the living daylights out of me. But I thought, I'm 54 years old, if not 55, and I'll never have a chance like this again. I've got to do it.
That just sounds so brilliant.
Yeah. Well, it is, and I've just seen the cars as well. They're like low slung. They're like you imagine 1950s convertible cars to be. Just bonkers. Bonkers the whole thing.
So
but,
do you get to jump in? Do you get to have the roof down and jump in?
I couldn't do that if you paid me £1 million. So but that's the kind of thing. I tend to cram my fun into short bursts like that. So I have a nice life, but I generally don't do anything very exciting when I'm at home. And then I'll go and do 3 weeks of sheer craziness, like cruising around the Caribbean with 600 other internet marketers, and then doing a road trip with my 5 best mates.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. I'm hoping you'll be able to still do the podcast as you're going along, because that would be very cool.
Well, I think what I might do is record some audio while I'm on the car trip, and then we can weave that into the podcast. It'd be funny.
Brilliant. Excellent. So what about if things don't go right, if you're having a bad day? What does that look like? How do you get yourself out of those?
I don't have bad days anymore.
Oh.
I have what I call my bug-free mind, and that's mainly due to when you've been down to absolute rock bottom and you pull yourself through that by dint of journaling and finding things to be grateful for. Even if you haven't got anywhere to sleep, because I didn't for about 3 months, I had to take potluck at my sister's house, wherever there was a bed free.
Yeah.
I had no money. I had a little bit of coaching income from mentoring people on internet marketing. I lost a 5-bedroom house. I lost a car. The kids had to go and live with their dad. It all happened very suddenly. So when you've been through something like that, everything else just seems wonderful. And the art of learning how to be grateful for tiny things like, I've got a bed to sleep in tonight and I've got a hot shower and I can eat this evening, you stop worrying about things so much. Because it's the true secret of happiness, I think, learning to be grateful no matter what's happening to you. And my friend Andy wrote, he went through a similar kind of thing at the same time. And he wrote a couple of books called Creating a Bug-Free Mind and Using a Bug-Free Mind. And they are really, really genius books. I highly recommend them to everyone. They're not, they're easy reading because they're such fun, but such profound concepts in them. And he taught me not to worry. I was such a worrier. I didn't realise how much of a worrier I was till I stopped.
Yes.
And it's just, I've just got control of my thoughts now. Whenever I catch myself having a negative thought or a scaredy cat thought or whatever, I'm much more conscious of it, and I can actually easily turn it to a positive or a grateful thought.
Yeah. Well, that's just really interesting to hear, and very sort of the way that I have a perspective sort of similar. I haven't had to go through the sorts of things that you went through, thankfully, but. I was at something at the weekend, and they had a speaker who got up and started saying, to be more happy, to be happier in your life, you need to blah, blah, blah. And it was very sort of prepared, motivational type, go for it thing. But it was completely lost on me because I sat there thinking, she's assumed that we all want to be happier, and I'm actually really happy with things, even though things aren't always how I want them to be, and things are always developing and all that sort of thing. And I do have worries at times and things that don't go right or whatever. I'm actually a happy person, so I was sort of, I don't know, I was sort of a little bit offended that she assumed that everybody wants to be happier, because that to me was a bit of a cliche, and I didn't think it was true. But it also made me think that actually I am pretty happy most of the time, so that's a good thing.
Yes, it is. And at the same time when I lost everything, I was. It's not that I don't have ambition now, and it's not that I don't want nice things, and it's not that I don't want to earn good money. It's the striving. I'm not constantly striving anymore. I can stop and enjoy. And you've always struck me as a very down to earth person and a very grounded person, and perhaps that's what people mean when they say someone's grounded. They're able to be happy in the moment.
Yes.
And that is just such it's a skill that can be learned as well, and that's the exciting thing about it. There's a book called Learned Optimism, which I'd like to recommend, which just popped into my head, by Martin Seligman. And he says, 50% of us are pessimists and 50% of us are optimists, and you can change. You can change your language. You can change how you expect things to be. You can go from being a pessimist to an optimist, and it's worth trying to do it, because optimists are not only happier, they're more successful in life. It's been scientifically proved, so it's worth trying to learn how to be happy and grateful and optimistic.
Yeah, I completely agree. So on a day when you've had a day where you've sort of got to the end of it knowing that you've had that chance to live more, which is what I say is the bit where you get to do the stuff that you want to do rather than the stuff that you feel you need to do or you should do or you have to do. What have you done? What does that day look like?
Oh, it's just a normal day, Joe. I'm so privileged to not have to do anything I don't want to do. I actually wrote down to the answer on this question, when I've been a guest on a podcast like this one. I love that because I don't know who's going to listen to this. I've got no idea. And if anything I say on this has helped someone or changed their life a bit, that is a day when I've lived more for me. And, yesterday one of my clients came on, she said, she's quite a well-known sort of coach, business consultant, and she said, you've just made me $77,000 from an ad spend of $750 so far.
Wow.
And that is a day when I live more because I just love doing that. That is creating something out of nothing. That's what I love doing. When I've created something, whether it's a thought or a successful ad campaign or a blog post or a podcast episode that me and Judith have laughed our way through, that's what I call living more, being creative and having fun.
Yeah, brilliant answer. So we've come to the end. I'm quite on time. Quite on time as well. I thought with us and our being known for talking thing, it would go on far too long. But we've been very good. So tell us how people can find out more about you, should I say, and connect with you.
Well, I've got a personal website at nicolacairncross.com, which really talks about my books and my speaking and personal stuff like that. Clicksandleads.com is where you can come to either find out how we can do your Facebook ads for you or how you can train to do your own if that's what you prefer. And I'm always on Facebook. Facebook's my thing, obviously, doing Facebook ads. I'm on there all day. But Twitter, I like Twitter as well, so connect with me on Twitter, Nicola Cairnx. And on Facebook, just put in Nicola Cairncross and connect with my page is probably the best thing because I've run out of friends. But I do check my page a lot, daily. So you can connect with me on there.
Lovely. And the podcast?
Oh, that's the thing I love the most at the moment. It's called Own It, and you can find it on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud, I think. And it's coming soon on Google Play. Because that's the Android platform they're just opening up, isn't it?
Yeah. And I can thoroughly recommend listening to it. It's my #1 podcast. I always listen to it when it comes out. It's the only one I know, apart from Desert Island Discs. It's the only one that I know what day it comes out on. And it doesn't hang around long before it's been listened to. But as I said, I'm going to stop listening to it walking around Sainsbury's because I embarrass myself giggling away.
We do have a bit of a laugh on that one, that's for sure. We do try and keep to a business-like structure, but sometimes we just go off on the weirdest tangents.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Nicola. It's been great having you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Joe's Gems.
This is the part of the show where I do a recap of the key points of the interview, the stuff that I really liked, and the apps, books, music, tips and tools that were shared. This is for you if you heard something that you want to check out, but you couldn't write it down at the time. Hopefully I've got you covered. And this is the bit for the really time-pressed. You can just listen here and get the gems from the interview. But of course I wouldn't suggest you do that and miss out on the great conversation that I had with Nicola. Nicola shared absolutely masses of resources, so this will be a little longer than usual, I would imagine. She first talked about Sleep Cycle, which I also use, which is an app on your phone where you can set an alarm to wake you up at the lightest part of your sleep, so it doesn't feel like you're being sort of woken up out of a deep sleep. Nicola has it set to play Kanye West and Jay-Z's Otis, which she says a little bit of hip-hop gets her up in the morning. I have something like Birdsong or something, so a bit different for me. She then talked about Slack as a way of communicating with your team. She said that they swapped to using it from using email and Skype, which was working okay, but wasn't very effective for finding things later, through search. And she said the thing about Slack is that all your communications go on inside Slack and it's very searchable and it integrates with lots of other things. So she used the example of pulling in a YouTube video URL and being able to see the YouTube video in Slack, so you don't have to go off to YouTube to get distracted. She also talked about Trello, which she says she doesn't use massively herself, but they do use it within their team to enable them to follow systems. It's a really nice tool. They have boards where you can move projects, tasks in the projects around, so that you've got things that are due to be done, things that are being currently worked on, and then you can archive things. It's very visual, and also it does integrate with Slack, so when Nicola goes into Slack she can see what's happening with the Trello boards without having to necessarily go into that itself. She uses Infusionsoft, and she said, I know other people use other things, and I know there are other things that are just as good, but I've been using it for a couple of years and I love it. And she also talks about lead pages, which she says she couldn't live without. So Infusionsoft is a customer relationship management tool, and it's really comprehensive, and in fact can take a reasonable time to learn how to sort of really get the most from it. And lead pages is a tool that you can use to easily set up opt-in forms and sales pages and so on, using the functionality that they put together, so that you sort of fill in some data and information about things like your mailing list and what you're offering and the price and those sorts of things, and then lead pages sort of does all of it for you and makes it look really attractive. We then talked about alternatives to Infusionsoft and lead pages, and Nicola mentioned Active Campaign, which she says has a lot of really nice features similar to Infusionsoft, but it's not quite so difficult to learn. And then she talked about ConvertKit, and she said if you're not ready for Active Campaign, so you want something that's more simple, then ConvertKit is an email list or an email list host with automation features. So if somebody joins your list and takes an action, they click on something, then you can move them automatically to another list. And she said that she'd team that up with Close.io, which is a customer relationship management system. Nicola uses Stripe. She says it's cheaper than PayPal, and you don't have the thing where if someone has your goods and services and then asks for a refund in a they're perhaps sort of trying it on, if you like, asking for a refund, then Stripe won't automatically refund them like PayPal will. And then we briefly mentioned Gumroad, which I also use, and it's an all-in-one solution to sell your work and grow your audience. That's what it says on their website. I use it for my Fun with Vision Boards product, which is a PDF and an audio file that you can download. And the beauty of Gumroad is, for those people in the UK, is that it gets you round the VAT issues for small businesses selling into Europe, because they do it all for you. So you don't actually have to register for VAT and do all the admin for it, because they're doing it at their end. Nicola recommended a number of books. The first was Choose Yourself by James Altucher. She said he's a podcast guy, a startup founder. He went bust and had lots of problems with drugs, and she finds him a really fascinating character. Two books by the same author, Gino Wickman, were Get a Grip, and he also wrote Traction. And she said Traction is one of the best business books that she's ever read after the E-Myth. She said it's a bit like the E-Myth for grown-ups. And then Get a Grip is a version of the Traction story, but written in a story as if it was a real company. She also mentioned Yannick Silver's new book, which she said is all about entrepreneurs with passion, people who want to make a difference in the world. And then there's a book called Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman, and she said that he says 50% of us are pessimists and 50% of us are optimists, and you can change. And she said, you can change your language and change how you expect things to be, and you can actually move from pessimism to optimism. So she recommends having a look at that book. And then she talked about two books by her friend Andy Shaw, Creating a Bug-Free Mind and Using a Bug-Free Mind. She said they're really genius books, and she highly recommends them. And she said that she has a bug-free mind. She, a number of years ago now, went through a difficult time and lost her house and her car, and her children had to go and live with their dad, and it all happened very suddenly. And she said that she's really realised how simple things like having a bed to sleep in and a hot shower and food are you should be grateful for. And she said she stopped worrying about things so much, and that is the secret of happiness, learning to be grateful no matter what's happening to you. And she said that these books really helped her with that process. So that's Creating a Bug-Free Mind and Using a Bug-Free Mind by Andy Shaw. In passing, Nicola said she's the biggest Star Trek fan ever. And then she shared a number of tips. So She talked about that lots of entrepreneurs talk about getting up early and all the stuff around Miracle Morning that we've talked about on other podcasts. And she said she doesn't get up early, not particularly anyway. And she said, when you've got small children, sleep is the most precious thing. And then when you get to the point where you don't have to get up at the crack of the dawn, she said, well, then why would you? Nicola keeps a notebook with lots of stuff written in there. All sorts of information, but she says she numbers the pages, so if she has got anything particularly meaningful she can go back and find it easily. So she puts the numbers on the pages and then puts the number of anything that's particularly interesting that she thinks she might want to refer to later on in the back of the book, so that she can find it easier again, because she doesn't like not being able to find things further down the line. Nicola talks about listening to podcasts to help her to get to sleep in the evening. It gets her brain engaged so she can relax. She talks about diary zoning, which is something that I've been trying, and she said it helps her a lot because you can really batch jobs into certain types of jobs. So, for example, on Wednesdays she does things like podcasting and telephone calls and interacting with people. Her Mondays and Fridays are working on the business, and Tuesdays and Thursday mornings are about clients, potential clients. And then she has the afternoons all free, and that's partly because she's trying to make time for exercise, which is another tip that she shared. And she's saying that it was about clearing her diary in the first place so that she has the time availability. And she thinks the next thing is probably to go off and find a luxury gym to join, so that it's a real treat, and encourages her to go rather than feeling like a chore. She said she has more time than the average person, or more time than people think that she has, and she thinks some of that's down to not having to look after the children full time, because obviously they're older and they don't live with her anyway. And also she said having a husband, her partner doesn't live with her, so he's not putting a lot of attention on her time, so she does have more time than perhaps people think. And she talked about being happy in the moment. She talks about, again, when she lost everything. She's saying that now it's not that she doesn't have ambition and she doesn't want nice things, but she's not constantly striving like she might have been doing in the past. She actually is stopping and enjoying and being happy in the moment, and how important that is. Like me, Nicola's a big fan of podcasts, and so she's recommended quite a few of them. So Superfast Business with James Schranko, Think, Act, Get with Ezra Firestone and also James Schranko again, and then another one with James and Taki Moore, which is Sales, Marketing, Profit, and one called Bootstrapped with Kids with Brecht and Scott. And then she talked about the Startup Chat, which she said is possibly her favourite at the moment, because it's got Steli Efti, who she does seem to mention in nearly every podcast that I listen to that she does. She says he's a bonkers Greek who went to America and got a successful software company set up, but he's also presenting the show with Hitan Shah, who started Crazy Egg and Cosmetrics, and she said that together they're dynamite. She said it's the funniest, fast-paced but also most thoughtful and emotionally intelligent podcast that she knows, so it sounds like a good recommendation there. And finally, to contact Nicola, she's got a personal website at nicolacairncross.com where she talks about her books and her speaking and that sort of thing. Clicksandleads.com is where you can find out more about how they do Facebook ads or how you can train to do your own if that's what you'd prefer. Not surprisingly, she says she's always on Facebook. So she said if you just search on Facebook for Nicola Cairncross, you can find her page and like that. And on Twitter, she's Nicola CairnX. So Nicola, CairnX is her Twitter name. And then she finished off talking about her own podcast, which she does with Judith Morgan, which I thoroughly recommend and I listen to every week. And it's called Own It, the podcast. And that's available on iTunes, Stitcher and SoundCloud, so you should be able to find that quite easily, or just do a Google for it. As always, these links are available on the website. If you use powertolivemore.com/11, it'll take you straight to Nicola's page.
Use your power to live more.
Again, this information is available on the show notes on the website powertolivemore.com/11 in this case. And if you'd like to sign up to get my weekly newsletter with more tips, strategies, ideas and tools to improve your power, you can do that on the website too. Again, the link for the show is powertolivemore.com/11, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.